True contacted his fellow 8-Tray leaders in other states. He asked them what to do about inactive members who won't follow directions. The leaders told him to weed out members who didn't follow directions and to only keep those who followed his orders. The only problem was that True had no one who was coming through for him, so that would mean he had to get rid of everyone. So instead, he had to keep to himself about his frustrations and just wait patiently. Nothing would happen for 4 months, and True would go out and do it for himself once again. November 11th, 2016. By himself, True drives to the Lexington Terrace and spins around the block. And this time in front of the food mart, he spots Shaheem Brown. So that's when he parks his car and hops out. True had now taken out 2 very important BGF members, and this meant that they were looking for revenge. All of the 8-Tray members knew this, so they decided to lay low, and that even includes True, if you can believe that. So for 3.5 months, they all relaxed. But then in early 2017, bad news would come for 8-Tray. On February 25th, 2017, True would get a call from a fellow member that 8-Tray's David Jackson had been rushed to the hospital. He heard that David had been hit in the leg, so he rushes over to the hospital to see if he's okay. After arriving, True learned that it was actually David's doing on accident, and this made him roll his eyes. Of course, he was relieved that BGF hadn't done this, but on the same token, he was embarrassed that his squad was an absolute mess. Over the coming months, True would really contemplate what he needed to do as a leader. Part of this process was long talks with the New York and LA leaders. He even began writing a book about 8-Tray and all of their history. Well, after this period, True would jump back into the group chat. His simple message was that if anyone wants to continue being a member, they must, quote, swing the hammer. This message caused a stir in the group chat, with members pointing fingers left and right. Each member began giving excuses on why they haven't been active. Well, True did not want to hear it, so instead he went out to recruit some new members. He quickly found a wild man that reminded him of himself. This would be a man named Deontay Emons, also known as Tip. Deontay had no fear of anyone, and he probably had a couple screws loose as well. All of this making him what True believed was the perfect 8-Tray member. After becoming an official member, Tay was placed on True's childhood corner. Specifically, Deontay and Maurice Mitch Finney posted up at the Seneca gas station on North Hilton. This is where they hustled and held down the block for G True. Well, with Deontay's wild temper, it was only a matter of time before things went left. And that takes us to July 14th, 2017. It's a regular Friday evening in West Baltimore, and Tay and Mitch are hanging out at the Seneca gas station. At 8 p.m. they notice something strange. A couple of men posted up on the other side of the street. So together, Tay and Mitch walk across the street to confront the men. They ask them who they are and what they claim. The men tell them that they represent the Abington crew, a subset of BGF. Their territory is located across the street from 8-Tray, so it only makes sense for them to post up there. Regardless, Deontay gets angry and tells the men to leave the area. One of the men named Christopher Hockaday refuses and stands his ground. Deontay gets extremely frustrated and lets his emotions get the best of him. The Abington boys were not happy, to say the least, as Deontay had no reason to take it this far. After all, the territory belonged to both sides, as it was the middle ground between both of their neighborhoods. Well, the Abington boys would not take long to get their revenge. What if I told you that the Abington boys had a member just as wild as G True and Deontay? Well, his name is Cortez Weaver, also known as Tez, and he was gonna make sure to get his revenge. July 17th, 2017. Tez walks across the street to the Seneca gas station looking for 8-Tray members. There he spots Maurice Mitch Finney hanging out outside. So he walks up and without hesitation, this was 8-Tray's first to fist friend Mitch, and later that day he would unfortunately come through with his promise. At 10 p.m. G True calls up Gotti and asks him to bring him his car. He then removes the license plates, hops in the car, and drives over to the Abington territory. In front of the Abington liquor store, he spots a very important man. This would be a member named Theron McClary, a man whose rap sheet is longer than a giraffe's neck. So G True hops out solo once again. This was a major deal in Baltimore, as Theron was an infamous man on the west side, and with this major move, G True hoped that this would inspire other 8-Tray members. However, 11 months would go by and nothing would take place. And here we are once again, G-True thinking he needs to do it all himself. July 6, 2018. It's a Friday night in West Baltimore and the Abington boys are outside of their local market playing dice. The reason they're comfortably outside is because it had been 11 months since anything had happened. And I only say that because in Baltimore that's forever. Well, little do they know, True is having one of those days where he wants to make a statement. So at 10 p.m. True leaves his house and heads down to the Abington area. He then observes the dice game and decides to make a terrible move. He actually used the same blower here that he did with the 2017 Thomas McClary incident. Ultimately, this is how police tied the two incidents together. But wait, we're not quite there yet. Well, single-handedly, True had gotten the Back West 8 trade to be one of the most feared sections in the city. This is despite many of his members never popping out. And unfortunately for him, this trend would continue into 2019. Enough was finally enough, and True decided to call an 8-tray leader named Paco Diamonds all the way in LA. Over the phone, he asked the man for advice on what to do about inactive members, and that's when True learned about the infamous DP. True was inspired and wanted to DP a member named Ronnie Finney, also known as Finn. Finn happened to be one of Mitch's closest friends, so after he passed, he vowed to get revenge. Of course, this never occurred, and G-True wanted to punish him. So after his phone call with the LA leader, True informed Finn that he would undergo a DP. Finn refused to oblige, so then True called over another member to help him out. This would be a member named Wrigley Shipley, also known as Crazy. Well, after calling him over, Wrigley decided not to participate. In fact, all of the 8-tray members thought this was a ridiculous idea and wouldn't help out. This is when True knew that nothing would come of 8-tray and that he couldn't be like the leaders in LA or New York. By the spring of 2019, he had given up his dreams and decided to let the members do whatever they wanted. For most members, this meant sitting back and chilling, but for one member, it was the complete opposite. This, of course, would be Deontay Emons, and while the other members were sitting in the house chilling, he was outside as wild as ever. And that takes us to March 4th, 2019. It's a Monday night on the 8-tray side of Hilton Avenue. It's a slow day, so Deontay decides to leave the Sunoco gas station to go post up on another corner. As he makes his way down, he notices an unfamiliar face on St. Joseph. So Deontay gets curious and approaches the man. He questions where the man is from and what he represents. Deontay then learns that the man has affiliations with BGF. That's when the two get into an argument, and sadly, Deontay takes it to the next level. Deontay then fled the scene on foot and was able to get away. But then the next day, an 8-tray member named Smuppy would send a picture of Tywin Smith to the group chat with a question mark. True and Deontay would both respond confirming it was them. And to make things worse, later that day they would both take it to social media. Deontay would make an Instagram post pretty much bragging about what he had just done. And True would leave a comment that said no attempts, meaning that Tay always gets the job done. At this point, Deontay and True felt untouchable, kind of like they were evil twins. But as the two distinguished themselves from 8-tray, one member would decide to step up.